Welcome to the DMF. I am your host, Justin Yachts, and this is episode 29. And I'm going to talk a little bit about just things going on in life. I'm going to talk about the books I've read. I'm going to talk about the film Stuber. I'm going to talk about the film Yesterday. And I'm going to talk about the film Olympus Has Fallen. I'm also going to talk about Mandalorian Episode 1, Season 2. I'm going to talk about voting and the election that's coming up. And we'll end with a quote. So, I hope you enjoy and stay tuned. Okay, so this week has been interesting because I didn't realize this, but somebody in my family had COVID. It's kind of an interesting situation. We had some friends over. I stayed mostly away from them, and they hung around, and then we found out that Friday that one of them had COVID and that they possibly... So we went and got tested, and I found out that I was negative, but my parents were positive. So that was kind of frustrating at first. It was actually scary at first because I wasn't sure exactly what to do. I talked to friends, I talked to my brother, and I was just like, is this... For me at first I felt like it was a death sentence, although I quickly calmed down, but it, kind of scared. So it's been weird because in the house I've been having to wear a mask and I've been wearing gloves and staying as far away from them as I possibly can. I'm on the third floor, they're on the second floor, and then we share the kitchen. So I've been making sure that everybody wear masks, and I've been going and getting them food and everything. But so far it's been fine. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. My father still has kind of a cough, so I'm kind of staying away from him. But overall, it wasn't that bad. Now, that's not for everyone. Some people might have it worse than others. But I'm just telling you what's happened with my situation because I was freaked out and I was panicking. I was like, should I go to a hotel? Should I go here? But I think the worst is over and they seem to be responding well to it. I think by Tuesday they're going to be fine, and, it ended up not being that big of a deal. But to those of you that it is a big deal of, please, my condolences, and I understand how you feel, because when I first heard this, that's exactly how I felt. Now, I'm lucky because it seems to have passed, and, my father was able to get like a little inhaler and things like that, so it seems to be, we seem to be on the end of this, so I just wanted to share that with you, my experience with COVID, because, I was, as I said, I was very nervous, and, first I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't want my parents to get this. I didn't want I to get this, and I didn't get it, which is lucky, and, I had all my friends, I had anybody that came over, the person who came over to work on my short film, we had her checked up, and she's fine. So it's probably going to be another week before we can do any more filming because I want to make sure that the house is completely clean and fine. But I think we're at the end of it. And I just want to say thank you, for the doctors and for what we have to take care of this. So I hope others can, be smart about it. I don't know what that noise is outside, but so just be careful. To me, I was kind of frustrated at first because I was like, if we were social distancing, this wouldn't have happened. This is why they say social distance, because you don't know. So my advice to everyone is to wear masks and social distance. That's the most important thing that needs to happen. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the books I read. I read this book called Unlimited... here it is, yeah. Unlimited Reading. Actually, it's called Unlimited Memory. I don't know why I wrote Unlimited Reading. It's called Unlimited Memory, and it's by Kevin Horsley. And you can get it for free if you're an Amazon Prime person. Well, you can find it for free on other sites as well, but you can get it from the Amazon Prime. If you're an Amazon Prime person, you can have like eight different books you can pick, and now that's one of them, and I'm reading that, and I'm really enjoying it. I just started it, but I really liked it. Another book I read this week was The Proven Speed Reading Techniques, How to Read, I think 300 pages in 60 minutes by John R. Torrance. I enjoyed that book because it talked a lot about, it had, Jim Quick, who was somebody who I really look to as one of the godfathers of speed reading. He's really put that into the psyche of, he talks, and he talked about how Jim Quick says, one of the most important things to get reading done fast is environment. Are you comfortable? Are you sitting up right? Are you just slouching? These are things that, you can do. Subvocalization. That's one of the hardest things, because when you learn to read, you kind of sound it out in your head, but as you want to read faster, you want to just look at groups of words and just recognize it, as opposed to sounding it out in your head. If you're reading in your head, that slows you down, because we can only speak like 100 to 150 words per minute, usually. There are exceptions. And with reading, it's like 300 words per minute is the usual thing. And then you could get to people that are at 1,500 words per minute. Think of all the time you could save if you read faster. This is why I think speed reading is one of the most important things to get. So I would recommend getting this book, Proven Speed Reading Techniques. I think it was like $5 on Amazon. You may be able to find it for free on a PDF somewhere. It's a great book, and it's really interesting. I'm going to see if I can even maybe interview John R. Torrance on it, because I think this is such a valuable skill to have. So, those are the books I've been reading, and I'm really enjoying them. I'm enjoying one of them. One of them I finished, and I think you're going to. I think you'll like both those books if you're like me and you want to learn faster, and you want to be able to read faster, because I feel like you can cover more ground that way. So, one other thing, and I'm going to let it go on this, is skimming and seeing what you're kind of getting an idea of what you're going to read before you read. With speed reading, you're cutting down some of the times you could go and do that. That's another way. It gives you a bunch of different tools to do that, but I recommend getting this book, and I'll be back with the films. Okay, so I watched some films over the weekend, over this whole week, and I'd like to discuss some of them. So let's start off with the film Yesterday. Now, I didn't get the chance to see this last year. I was going to go see this at the theater, but it kind of like just zoomed in and out. Well, actually, it was there for a while, but I think I was going through a period where... Actually, no. I think what happened was I was in... I was in Florida, so there was no way I could really... It was harder to see films at that time. But I recommend this film. This is a film about a struggling musician who has an accident, and he wakes up and realizes that he's living in a world where the Beatles do not exist. And also Coke doesn't exist, and Oasis doesn't exist, some other things don't exist, and they kind of play off that. So he's living in this alternate world of where the Beatles don't exist, and he knows this stuff, so he's kind of taking the Beatles songs and bringing them back. So it's a clever film. I'm going to talk a little bit about spoilers a little bit later on into this, but let's talk a little bit about the directing. It was directed by Danny Boyle, and it was written by Richard Curtis. Richard Curtis wrote The Boat, Pirate Radio in America, and then The Boat That Rocked, I think is called in the UK. I don't know, for some reason they changed it to Pirate Radio in the United States. Probably because of the success of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, but I digress. So he did Love Actually. So he's also directed, and he's wrote For Weddings and a Funeral. He wrote that. So Danny Boyle, though, directed the film. He's a favorite director of mine. He directed the film Steve Jobs, which I'm going to go into depth sometime either this year or next year on a long episode on that, just that film. But I liked what he does. I love the way he sets up shots. He's got these great wide shots, and the way he just uses color, and I like it. I like Danny Boyle's work. I'm a fan. Sometimes I disagree with some things. I felt like I'll get a little into this after I get through some of the acts. So let's move on to the acting. Himesh Patel, who is kind of a known in England, but this is like I think his first major film, and he plays the character who discovers these songs and gets hurt and wakes up in a world where there are no Beatles, where Beatles does not exist. Lily James plays his manager slash kind of love interest, and she's kind of a pivotal point in this film. Kate McKinnon plays the manager, the soul-sucking manager in this film. I had some problems with that. I'm going to get into that when I get into the film as a whole. We'll move a little into that. I think I'm going to do that in spoilers. Ed Sheeran is in it. He's kind of a jerk in this film. I'm going to be honest with you, the way he comes across. But let's talk a little bit about the music. The score was done by Daniel Pemberton. And the film, some of the songs in there that Himesh Patel does are Yesterday, Help, Let It Be, Hey Jude. So that's a little bit about some of the things in there. Now I want to move on to spoilers, because I don't feel like I can do this film justice without really talking about spoilers. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds to click off. You know that I will always put the time stamp of where it is to where it ends, so that we can so that you can continue on if you don't want to hear spoilers. But I kind of have to, if I'm going to review this film, I have to talk about spoilers as well, because it just, I don't know, then it's just like every other little review you've heard. So moving on, 10 seconds, here we go. Okay, so the film, I like this film, and my problem, Kate McKinnon comes off way too one-dimensional. So one of my problems with the film is a lot of the characters come off as one-dimensional at points. There's a funny point in the film where Ed Sheeran says that Hey Jude doesn't really work. Why don't we try? And then he pauses. Hey dude. And you can almost see him laughing. They had to cut the camera probably so fast because he wanted to just break out laughing, because that just sounds so ridiculous when you think of it. But if we were in a world without Beatles, this is probably what the studios would do. They didn't like the idea of the White Album. They show him there. It's like, it's a little, racial inclusive. I think he says something like that. We need to have a little bit more here. And he's like, Abbey Road, it's just a road. Who cares? So he's kind of, frustrated because he's trying to bring something that he knows is like the greatest albums of all time, and all these people are trying to like change things. Now, one of my problems with the film is this guy wants, fame and fortune, and they kind of seem like he either can have fame and fortune or he can be happy in life. And I don't like that. I think he could have both. They kind of play him off as selfish, and Lily James is in the right, but I'm like, kind of selfish too for not wanting him to do those things. Can't they just have a conversation between the two and say, maybe we can, do both? I mean, could she not be his girlfriend and he delivered these songs to the Beatles? As I said, Ed Sheeran comes off as a jerk to me in this film. You really feel for the guy because he feels like he's becoming a phony at times. We see James Corden as kind of a jerk, which, more and more revelations are coming out that he may be actually a jerk, but I don't know. That's a subject for another day. I love the way he sings all these songs. It's a unique take on Beatles songs. I like Timesh Patel. Some people don't like it. I thought Kate McKinnon played her character way too much like an SNL character. It's too one-dimensional, but that's probably not her fault. That's the script. Probably wouldn't allow her to go any further than that, but I wanted a little bit more layered characters. Now at the end of the film, he requests, he puts he says, I didn't write these songs. These were written by people that didn't exist. Although we find John Lennon at one point, and he tells him to just tell the truth. So in some ways, he's saving himself. Then he runs off with the girl, and he's decided that fame and fortune wasn't for him, but he was happy the way things were, and he realized that he had it great all along. Now, I was wondering if they were going to do a thing where he would snap back to reality, if it was going to be a dream, or if it was going to be some kind of traveling back. He was going to hit his head again or something, and then wake up in a world where none of this exists, and he was just going to go with her. But it was a nice little take. The world changed, and it didn't change back. So I liked this film. I recommend going to see this. Now let's talk about Olympus Fallen. This is a film about a guy who is, protecting the president. Something happens, and the president, he's no longer protecting the president, and the guy that's protecting the president situation happens, and he's got to save the president. It's your standard espionage action film. I liked it. It's directed by Antoine Fuqua, who has done, I think, The Magnificent Seven. I believe he did the Equalizer films. He's a great director. He has a really good eye for things. The only problem with this film is it's dated by some of the technology. A lot of the CGI shots look dated now, but that's to be expected. There's nothing you can do about it. I enjoyed this film for what it was. I enjoyed it. Now let's talk a little bit about the acting. It's the main actor in it is Gerard Butler. He plays the guy that's been protecting the president, is no longer protecting the president. Now he's got to protect the president again, and he's kind of doing a make good to redeem himself in the president's eyes. Aaron Eckhart plays the president. I think he does a really good job. I liked it. I've got no complaints. Morgan Freeman is always really good. Melissa Leo's in there. She plays like one of his, secretaries of something. She's good in it. Angela Bassett's good in it. She's another person who's kind of trying to, one of the people in the bunker with him. Rick Yoon, who was in the Fast and Furious films, he plays the villain in it. It's good. Dylan McDermott's in it. He plays an interesting character. I can't go into spoilers on that. Trevor Morris did the score. The scores that he's worked on are the Tudors and the Borgias. The score is not something you're going to notice right out the gate unless you're looking for it, but it works. It works for the tone of the film. As I said, I enjoyed this film. I'm going to go and see London Has Fallen and Angels Has Fallen. I think they're going to do another one as well. For what it is, it's good, and it's rated R. It takes the content seriously. There's no sugarcoating it, and there are points where it's brutal, and you're kind of like, wow, that's probably how it would be if terrorists did get into the White House. Because at the end of the day, they have taken over the White House. I didn't really explain this enough in the synopsis. They've taken the White House, and Gerard Butler's got to get the president out because they want to pull back their forces and release. Very much the same plot of Air Force One, but I like this film. It's good stuff. Now there's one more film I want to talk about today, and that is Stuber. And this is it's a little film where a guy who's an Uber driver gets picked with a cop picks him who can't see right now, so he's just had his eyes done, and so he's blind, and he's got to have this guy Uber drive him around. It's a buddy cop film. It's in that same realm of Another 48 Hours and Eddie Murphy and stuff like that. I liked it. I liked it for what it was. It's directed by Michael Dowse, I believe is his name. The actor in it is Kumail Nanjiani. I think that's how I pronounce it. Dave Bautista, Betty Gilpin's in it, Mira Sorvino, and Karen Gillan. The music is done by Joseph Trampanese. It's not a score you're going to notice. It's really funny though. I liked it. It's got heart to it. If you like that kind of film, I mean, some people might say this is just your standard action, big budget, comedy that they're trying to put. Budget comedy. It's not really a huge budget, but they have some kind of Hollywood, comedy of the summer. I don't think it did super well, but I liked it for what it was. I think Dave Bautista is really funny. I've always enjoyed him as a wrestler, and I enjoy him as an actor, and I can see him improving as an actor each time. And he continues to just be better and better. Kumail Nanjiani, I loved him in the Big Sick. I think he's going to be great in the Eternals. Betty Gilpin, she's great in the Eternals. Mira Sorvino, she was in. I haven't seen her in a while. And Karen Gillan plays his partner. Now I don't think this is spoilers because it's not in the thing. But the whole thing that kind of sets this off is his partner is killed, played by Karen Gillan. And she, now he's trying to get this guy to, bring justice. It's your standard action, cop film, but with comedy. I liked it. I recommend it. I recommend all these films. Go see them. You don't have to see them. If I would put one in order of, I'd say Yesterday, Olympus Has Fallen, Stuber. So that's it, and we'll be back with Mandalorian 2. Mandalorian Season 2 has begun, and I just finished Episode 1. Now, I don't know if you've watched Mandalorian, but to me it's one of the most original takes they've had on the Star Wars mythology, because it just seems like they've been treading old ground, and here we are. Jon Favreau takes this idea of a bounty hunter and shows us what happens after the Return of the Jedi. After Return of the Jedi, not the Return of the Jedi. Sorry about that. After Return of the Jedi. And he's introduced this character who we all kind of call Baby Yoda. Although we probably don't know if it's Baby Yoda. I think the correct term is the child. It plays like a Western. It's like Kung Fu. He goes from place to place and we see him, kind of save the village before he moves on to the next part. This episode was directed by Jon Favreau, who is the creator of this and came up with this idea, and I think it's terrific. The guest star of this episode, was Timothy Olyphant. The music is done by Ludwig Göransson, who did Tenet, he does The Mandalorian, he did Black Panther. Really good score, composer, score, however you want to say it. I just continue to love this series even more. Now, there's no way to talk about this without getting into spoilers, so once again, I'm going to say spoilers, and I'll give you a little, though, synopsis before we go straight into spoilers. So the synopsis is that the Mandalorian comes to the Tatooine, and he meets a guy with Mandalorian armor, and they have to save the town. Simple plot line, but the way they do it just works so well. Now I'm going to go into spoilers, so here we go. Okay, let's talk. I like this episode. They bring in Timothy Olyphant shows up he's got the Boba Fett armor, and the Mandalorian sees it, and he's like, take it off, or I'm gonna take it off your dead corpse. Sort of that aspect. And then this this sand monster comes and like swallows up the thing, and they realize they got a team. He says, look, I'll give you the armor if you help me stop this creature. They do. They end up teaming up with the Sand People. This is the first time we've seen Sand People done this way, and it's playing off in nostalgia while widening the base of what we've seen of Tatooine. And I forget what the name of there's Mos Eisley, there's this other place, and then there's this new place that he's got to go to, and they say that this place fell after, the second Death Star fell. People took over it. This guy was found by Jawas, left for dead, found the armor of Boba Fett and shot all these, and ran everybody out of town. Now they've got this sand monster that's coming after it, so they got to work with the sand people and the people of the town to get it. It plays like a western. He's the guy. He rolls into town, he helps everybody, and then he leaves. Simple plot. So they do defeat him. They defeat this sand monster. It's cool because we get to see the Mandalorian. He knows how to communicate with the sand people. It's so good. I don't know. There's not much I can say bad about it because it's doing everything you want Star Wars to do. The ending, we get the tease of Boba Fett. We believe that is Boba Fett, and he's probably coming back for his armor, and he's going to become a character that's probably going to hunt the Mandalorian, I think. That's my guess. I don't know. I'm thoroughly enjoying this show. The way it's just told it's everything you want in Star Wars. I could go on and on, but I don't know what the point is. It's perfect. Everything is great. They're doing what they should have done with the sequels and the prequels, and they didn't do any of that. People wanted to see more. There's more to this universe than just Skywalkers, and I like that they're giving us this and the Empire, telling this rogue story, and everybody loves Baby Yoda, the child. It's just so adorable. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I thoroughly enjoy this show. I'm going to probably take more extensive notes on the next episode, but yeah, I'd say go watch this episode. Go watch this series. It won't, unless you don't like, even if you don't like Star Wars, I think you can get into this because it's just so well crafted. And telling a story through a guy who has a helmet on that can show no emotion, and the way that they've crafted it in a way that you feel the emotion coming out from the helmet shows what a master filmmaker Jon Favreau is, and just the whole team to be able to put this together. So that's my thoughts on The Mandalorian, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about voting. So, Tuesday, we have an election, November 3rd. This is 2020 election. Everybody's been building up to this. It's Democrats versus Republicans. I'm going to tell you how I feel, but this is my opinion. The most important thing that I want you to get from my talking about this is for you to form your own opinions, not to just take on my opinions. Think for yourself. If you believe, whoever you believe is the right guy, that is your decision. Don't let somebody else influence your decision. It's your vote. You choose. Now for me, I am going with Biden. I don't like the fact that Trump has said not to wear masks. He's had these rallies. He says, I can't say anything. All he needs to do is get on the mic and say, listen, I think we need to all wear masks while we're here so that we can be safe, and he can do it in his Trumpian way. He hasn't done that. And I think that's irresponsible. And after watching my parents get this, it's frustrating to me to watch this continue. We need to be smarter than this. Now look at Britain. Britain has just had their second lockdown. Some people are upset about that and say that's too totalitarian of a force to use on people, but I don't know. That's what they need. That's what Boris Johnson is going to do. So, I feel, I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't like the regulation that he's cut with the environment. It's not so much the rhetoric, but, I don't think the goal should be cutting taxes for the 1% or the 10%. I think we need to figure out a way to get a plan. I think we need more of a New Deal type of idea. We need an FDR type of idea so that everybody can benefit. Because right now, we're creating a gap of poor and upper class, and we're destroying the middle class. And so we need a New Deal to come around to save those things, because that is how this country has always been. We want to have lower class, middle class, upper class. Now, we're not like, Britain, where, you sit in steerage if you're lower class. But everyone has the opportunity. And the problem is we've lost the opportunities. So I don't know if Biden is going to do any of these things. I don't know if he's going to lower prescription drugs, which these are the things that are important to me. I don't know if he's going to try and get free college. These are the things I'm hoping for. But from what I've seen with Trump, I don't feel he deserves a second term. This is my opinion. I don't want you to do that. Also, whoever you vote for, don't fight with each other because one voted for the other. It's your decision. We have the right to vote however we want. So that's what I want to say. I'm telling you who I'm voting for. I voted for Biden. I've already voted. I do believe in mail-in ballots. I'm not going to the polls right now with this. After watching my parents get this, I was always cautious, but it makes me even more cautious. And I'm telling everyone, if you do go to the polls, wear a mask, social distance. Be careful. If you are careful, we can nip this in the bud. Now I'm going to end with a Peggy Noonan quote. She's not my favorite, but I like this quote. Our political leaders will know our priorities only if we tell them again and again. And if those priorities begin to show up in the polls, and if these priorities begin to show up in the polls. Actually, I don't know if I like this quote so much. I'm going to change it a little bit. So our political leaders will know only if we tell them. I agree with that part. We need to tell them so that those things. And only when we make that known will those things show up. And it's true. And we need to make Medicare for all, medicine for all, whatever you want to call it. The fact that we need to cover everybody. Health, education, crime, these things do not need to be for profit, in my opinion. These things should not be for profit. So and this last part, only if we tell them again and again. Yes, we need to continue to reinforce it over and over again so that they don't forget. We need to make it known that this is what is important to us as American people and not forget that. So that's what I've got to say, and I want to say thank you, and I will see you next time on the DMF.